Because of the way the universe is created, we each of us live in two worlds at the same time. We have to live in the outer life of our own bodies and the inner life of our own souls.
Hello and welcome to Living the Inner Life. I'm your host, Chris Sheridan, and I want you to join me on a series of discussions and explorations into our inner life. That is our thoughts, our beliefs, our experience up until this point, our hopes, our dreams, everything that goes on in our consciousness, this inner life, this inner world that's very active all the time. Even when we're asleep, it's going on in our dreams. And it's my belief and the belief of many others throughout time that it's easier, better, more efficient, more effective to change the things about ourselves in our inner life in order to have the best experience possible with our relationships and our connection with everything in the outer world. So it's living the inner life, but we're living a total life, but from the inside, moving towards the outside. Well, I remember as a kid growing up, I used to watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. My brother and I would sit there and on a black and white TV, and he was kind of a strange guy, and that whole trolley world that he went to I was a little more interested in the trolley because I wanted a train set, I guess, than this make-believe world that he would go into. But the thing I found most interesting, even then and to this day, is when Mr. Rogers would come into the house, he would take his coat off, hang it up in the closet, and pull out his sweater, and he'd sit down, he's singing this song, and he would change his shoes. He had his street shoes, and then he'd put some sneakers on. And any kid would, you couldn't wait to get home and take your dress shoes off and put your sneakers on or something. That was, freedom to run and play and do all kinds of things. And that was, I didn't realize at the time how significant that really is. And that has come up many times over the years. And it's something I think about a lot. Because what he was doing, he was saying, this is different. I'm in a different place now. Okay, yes, I'm in this house, in the neighborhood, but we're going to be doing some things, talking about some things, visiting some characters that aren't necessarily in our normal everyday walk of life. So he changes his sweater and he changes his shoes, and that transforms the space. We're in a different place now. So I want to talk about sacred space. Now, in many religious traditions, especially some of the more traditional native or indigenous cultures, place a lot of emphasis on sacred space. Because when you're going to hold a ceremony, you don't want to be thinking about where you parked your car or what you have to do tomorrow and your shopping list and something you forgot this morning. There's no space for that. There's no place for that. Sacred space is a way of making sure that you're only bringing into this space, this physical space we'll talk about right now, only the things that are necessary and none of the things that would be a distraction or somehow divert or take away from the quality of having this sacred space for ritual or ceremony. Okay? Now, it doesn't have to be a religious ceremony. It doesn't have to be a ritual or anything like that. What it has to be, though, is you changing your attitude or your connection with the space to make it what it is, to make it conducive and welcoming to be doing this thing. You could even do it in the kitchen. All right. I like doing dishes. I like cooking. I love in the kitchen. It's a great room, one of the best rooms in the house, actually. And everybody winds up in the kitchen sooner or later at a party, right? So this kitchen is this great place, but it's a place where the kitchen things stay in the kitchen. Okay, you're not going to walk around the house wondering where my blender is, where the oven mitts are. You're going to be in the kitchen maybe looking for those things. But this room is a sacred space, this area, even if it's just a little spot in your studio apartment. This kitchen is made and designed to do the cooking, the dishes, anything with eating or storing or preparing food, which is a ceremony and a ritual unto itself. If you are a foodie and you like food, to me, it's a sacred act, eating food, even grabbing a snack. It's not to be underrated. So we have these places and spaces, even in our small everyday dwellings, that are used for very particular purposes. That's why some people say, well, don't bring your iPad to bed or watch TV in bed. If you're going to the bedroom and you're going to be in bed, go to sleep. That's what it's for, that it somehow confuses or disrupts the sacred sleeping space, if that's not too difficult to speak, when you're bringing all these other things in it. Now, of course, I know we have multiple things going on, and maybe we're tired and we want to lie in bed and read for a while. But even then, if you're going to turn the things off, turn the light off, you're going to turn the TV off, put the book down, then it becomes a bedroom. It becomes a sleepatorium, and this is what you have to do for the next several hours and nothing else. Make it purposeful for what its purpose is. Okay? So you can do a lot for physical space. Now you can smudge, you can take sage or incense and burn it, and the smoke can kind of fill in the room, maybe not too much, but maybe that's not convenient. You have roommates or smoke alarms are very sensitive and you don't want to do that, or you don't like the smell, that's fine. You can ring a bell or a singing bowl, and it carries the sound that somehow you're doing something that you wouldn't ordinarily do. Okay? Even if it's maybe turning a light on or bringing an object that you have. You know, I have like a small globe. It's made out of glass and it's on my desk, but it's kind of off to the side. And I bring that out when I do this podcast because it reminds me of something and someone, but it's only coming out and in my field of view when I'm doing this podcast. So it connects with that this is the time that I do that, like Mr. Rogers and his tennis shoes. Okay, so whether it's an object or a light or a sound or a scent or something that you reserve for this sacred time, whatever that may be. It could be reading, it could be meditating, it could be relaxing, it could be practicing an instrument. It could be anything, or studying. Maybe if you're a student, you could be studying and you want to put your study shoes on. You want to put your study hat on. I guess that's what they say when people wear different hats. Okay, but we really need to change this hat. If we're changing what it is we're doing to make this space sacred, or we can do something with our body, like putting on sneakers like Mr. Rogers, or an actual hat. A lot of people are working out of home nowadays, and the transition between the bedroom and the kitchen and your office may be just a few steps down the hall, or you may be in one room doing all these things. Still put something on that says work, even if it's just a shirt, that this is my work shirt, and you maybe have half a dozen of them. And when you're at your desk, and this is the shirt you're going to wear for work. And then when you're done with work, you take the shirt off, okay, and put the other shirt on, or something like that. Something that says, I'm doing this now, and now I'm doing this. It's making this transition, shifting gears from one way of thinking to another way of thinking. That way you're focused and you can stay on track. Okay? So we can do our space, we can do our clothes, we can do an object around us. All these physical things can help create the mood for sacred space. All right? Well, the same is true with the inner life, because a lot of reference to the sanctuary or the holiest of holies, or that deep, small space within, is in the inner life. Okay? When it said, go to your closet and pray, not out in public, doesn't necessarily mean go to an actual physical closet. We're talking about this inner sanctum that's inside us, okay? And that's why we can use these outside things, but they're there as touchstones. They're there to remind us, to get us in the mood and in the mode of whatever it is we are now doing, okay? So with me, with the podcast, I have my purple light, I have my glass globe, I have lights, and there's one software piece that I don't really use for anything else. I use it for recording the podcast. So something simple like that, but it is different. It's different than every day. And even if I were using some of these things for other things during the day, or in a different context for a different purpose, they become new. They become my podcast mode. So my microphone, everything is here to do that because it's what I want to be focused on inside. I don't want to be thinking about anything else when I'm doing a podcast. I want to talk to you. I want to share what I have to share. Hopefully it's useful because I generally share things that are useful for me. Even if I'm not 100% well-versed at using some of these tools, I am at least familiar with them and I've had some experience with them enough to share because you may find something useful out of what I have found useful. Okay, so it's really a mental state. It's an emotional state. It's a spiritual state, if you will, if we're talking about sacred space. So this space within, what is sacred about it? What is special? You might want to ask. Okay, what is it in our heart, in our mind, in our soul, that we want to remain sacred and special? What is this space within that doesn't allow negative thoughts, that doesn't allow for distracting elements, memories and thoughts and fears and anxieties and all these things that we have going on? We need this just like we do in the outer world with the physical space or something physically we do with our bodies, with what we're wearing. Same with the inside, okay, with our inner life. You want to say, no, this is this space that I'm going to think, or I'm going to meditate, or I'm going to relax, or I'm going to pray, is so special, it is so important, and you're that important, this soul, your heart of hearts. You don't want these other conflicting or confusing, distracting, or dangerous thoughts and elements running around. They'll have their space. If you want to worry about what's on your agenda tomorrow, well, you can carve out some time and work on your schedule, or you can wait till tomorrow and face the day then. Or if you have 101 other things going on, well, there's 101 other times and places and spaces for doing that. But if you have something carved out for yourself, whatever it is, even if it's just to relax, especially if it's just to relax, because that's one of the greatest things we can do. Really relax the body, really relax our breathing. Relax our minds, this monkey mind going on all the time. Our heart can be racing. We can have gut feelings. We can have all these things going on. And sometimes we just need to turn it all off and let the world turn without us and let, like the pond or a lake or something, if it's all churned up, okay, if the water is disrupted, if it's constantly being churned, you can't really see very clearly. You can't see to the bottom. But if it's still, a whole world opens up. You can see straight through. Okay? So if we want to see through, if we want to have clarity, which is a great thing to get if you're meditating or just relaxing, turn off everything else. You let the dust settle. Okay? You let it go to the bottom of the pond, and then you can see things that you couldn't see before. Okay? But you're not looking or grasping or grabbing or trying to find something. I used to go snorkeling out in the Keys, and I used to dive down and I would hold my breath and I'd swim around the coral and look for a fish and look over here, look over there. And until my brother told me, he goes, no. The water's so shallow. Just float on the top, put your face down, breathe through your snorkel, and just wait. And I did. And once I wasn't moving all about and trying to poke and look and prod here, everything came out. The eels would come out. The fish would come out. The anemones would bloom. This whole world just came to life because I think I was distracting it. I was scaring it off, trying to look for it and find it. But just floating and looking down, I could enjoy this whole wonderful landscape, this whole ecosystem come alive right in front of me. The less I did, the more I was able to see. Okay? So do that with yourself. Carve out some time. Your thoughts, if you're working on a dream project, maybe it's a home business or some invention you're working on, or like I said, maybe you're learning an instrument. That time that you have carved out for that is important. It's worthwhile. It's so important that you shouldn't let anything else get in the way. When you're doing that, you can even imagine or envision like a white light around you. Okay, a light of protection, a light of purification, a force field to keep your inner environment clear of all the distractions and all the competing and conflicting thoughts and maybe negative feelings. If you're working on, especially if you're working on something new, if it's a new idea, something you're trying to cultivate, it's fragile. You don't want to talk about it to a lot of people or really anybody. And you don't want to listen to some of your inner voices saying, that won't work. Well, that won't get off the ground. Okay? Because we have those. We have these dissenting veto voices in our being. Okay? And they're there for a reason and they serve a purpose. But when you carve out this sacred space, this inner sacred space, you don't want anything else getting in the way or distracting you, okay? It's that important. You're that important. It's like a crucible or even like an oven, okay? You put a cake or something in the oven and you can't just keep opening it up and pulling it out and looking at it and, well, how's it coming? Shoving it back in. You kind of want to, you can look through the window, but you kind of want to leave it in there so the heat can stay in and it can stay at a consistent temperature. And I guess I'm back in the kitchen. Maybe I'm hungry. I don't know. But it's important. And it's that sacred space, that cake baking space. It's sacred for the cake, but it's sacred for you too, for your thoughts. If you're cooking up something, okay? If you have a half-baked idea, keep baking. All right? Keep this space sacred. And to do that, demand it. Command yourself. Say, hey, wait a minute. I'm going to think about this for a while. I'm going to try to relax. I'm going to practice my instrument. I'm going to meditate. Whatever it is you're going to do, for that time that you have allocated for that, make sure that you are in sacred space. You're protected from anything coming in and disrupting. And you don't want your thoughts going too far out here and there. You want to keep it focused. Okay? You want to keep your relaxation in relaxation mode. Don't let anything that's the opposite of relaxing, anything troubling, anything disturbing to churn up the water so you can't see. All right? Sacred space. Or maybe put on shoes and a little sweater like Mr. Rogers did when he came to the neighborhood. This is special. This is a special time. Okay? And maybe you're listening to this podcast while you're commuting or you're cleaning the house or anything you're doing. But it's time that you have, whether you have your earbuds on or you're just listening while you're doing something else, that's fine. But it comes in and you can let these relaxing these informative, intuitive, experiential parts of yourself open up and unfold on their own, naturally. So without trying, without grasping, without disrupting, or anything like that, let your thoughts, let your relaxation nurture and cultivate and grow on its own. You just have to carve out that time and that space. Even if your physical living space isn't really conducive for that. You can go in your car if you have a car. You can go for a walk. Sometimes a bathroom will give you at least a few minutes before people start worrying about you of time alone. Whatever it takes, it's that important. Even in the chaos, even if you're in a park and there's 1,000 people around you, get your own little bubble going. Okay, this sacred space, your force field around you. Don't let things from the outside come in to distract. And since we're living the inner life, make sure that these distractions from inside, this monkey mind, this constant barrage of thoughts and distractions that we have, and we're so prone to, especially in our busy lives, in this media, digital world that we're in, taking in all this information. Just as you would protect yourself on the outside, just as you would want to create an environment that's special and sacred for this time that you have, do the same inside, okay? The sacred space within your inner life. Well, thank you for spending some time and space with me here on Living the Inner Life.